What's up guys, I'm here with my Specialized demo downhill bike. It's been a while since I made the original bike check video of this build, and a lot of things have changed since then, so I wanted to fill you guys in on what's changed. I want to start out with one of the most obvious changes that I made to this bike, and you can see the bright orange coil. I have a Fox DHX2 on this bike now when it originally came with the Öhlins TTX22. There are some things that I didn't like about that shock, which led me to change to this shock. One thing I do want to mention when fitting a Fox shock onto a demo is that they have that high-speed rebound adjuster down low by this mounting location down here. And on the demo specifically, it interferes with that high-speed knob. So in order to solve this, I had to take a file to that, file it down a little bit so that it could fit. The downside to that is that I can't really adjust it freely while it's on the bike. So if you do need to make adjustments to that high-speed rebound, you kind of need to take it off the bike. Kind of a hassle, but I'm really happy with the performance of the shock, and it's actually held up. So I'm stoked with it. Got Fox front and rear on this thing, so I'm happy with that. I originally built this bike with DT Swiss EX471 wheels. It had been a couple of years since I'd run alloy wheels. I hoped that I could maybe take care of them a bit better, but it became very apparent very fast that that was not the case. I originally had 2 wheels for the rear because I knew I'd eventually break one, so I had a spare. It's always a good idea to have a spare wheel. And I broke both of those in back-to-back weekends on this bike, so it became apparent really quick that I needed to make a change there. Since that was the case, I went back to the tried and true E13 downhill wheels that I've been running for like the past 3 years now. I've had nothing but good experiences with them. I have broken a few, but every time I broke one, it was my fault, and I would expect any wheel to break in that circumstance. The cool thing about these wheels is that they're engineered and made in a way that when they do break, they don't explode like some other carbon rims do. They tend to just crack and actually still hold air so that you can finish your run, whether it's a race run or just any park lap like normal. So that's pretty cool that I can really trust these wheels. I like the ride feel of them, and they're really durable. Now, mounted on the E13 carbon wheels is no other than Michelin tires. These are the DH22s, and if you know me, you know that these are my favorite tires ever. Last year we were with Kenda, and we thank you, Kenda, but I am really happy to be on Michelin again, like I was prior. And if you know me, you know the DH22s are my favorite tires ever. Grippy, durable, bomb-proof. They're just a really awesome tire for downhill. It does come at an expense of a little bit of added weight, but to me, that's a good trade-off for having insane amounts of grip and durability. You can really trust these tires when smashing through rock gardens, so really stoked with that. Got DH22s on this bike and pretty much using all of their other tires on my other bikes, and just really happy with Michelin tires. I know they're hard to find, but if you guys out there can get your hands on a pair of DH22s specifically for bike park or downhill, highly recommend it, and I think you guys are gonna love them. All right, so aside from those changes, I've made a lot of changes up in the cockpit of my bike. If you're following me on Instagram, you saw the changes that I made, and if you're not following me, my Instagram is right down here and you should follow me. But before I dive into those changes, I wanna tell you why I made them, and that's because I was visually and physically feeling too small on this bike. And before I dive into the changes, I wanna talk a bit about bike sizing. So if you look at any manufacturer's website and look at their sizing recommendations up against their geometry numbers, you'll pretty much see that they're different across the board for each manufacturer. So pretty much what this means is that there's no standard one size per, like one size fits this size rider or one size fits that size rider. It all comes down to a lot of personal preference, actually. I don't want to say ignore their recommendations, but this is something that I've been learning a lot about recently for riding my own bike and just talking to other people and doing my own research, is that sometimes the size that the manufacturer recommends might not always be the size that you need. And I think this might be the case for me. So I am 5'12" on an S4 demo. It's the biggest one they make. I wish they made a little bit of a bigger one. But here is the situation that I ended up in. I was running this bike in the middle chainstay position, which put my reach at 463 millimeters. And That's pretty short for today's standards of long, low, slack bikes. Depending on your riding style, it could fit you, it could not. But for me, I was feeling a little crammed on the bike. And again, before I tell you the changes that I made, I want to show you some pictures visually to show you the difference. So I'm gonna pull up some pictures right now on my phone and I'm gonna show them on the screen. So this first one, you can really see that because the reach and bar height is where I had it when I originally built the bike, my knees are just like really tucked up underneath me, and I'm visually scrunched on the bike, and I was feeling that too. So then looking at this next picture, once again, you can see how like scrunched I am on the bike. My knees are tucked up like underneath me, which looking at my right foot right there, I was so scrunched on the bike that it made it hard for me to keep pressure on my heels and my feet and keep my feet down, which put me in a really bad riding position. This picture shows it again too. Cornering, my knees are just like super up underneath me. My chest is really bent over and I'm just not in a really strong riding position. And this is something that I was feeling, and then also getting video and seeing it. I'm a very visual learner. So I look at other riders, like World Cup riders, for example, and they're just like in a really strong position on the bike. And then I look at me and I'm not. So I knew there was a problem and I needed to figure it out. And I did, and it was a bike fit problem for me. So before I tell you the changes I made, I want to show you after the changes I made, what I look like now on a bike. First picture up on screen is from the recent race at Rock Creek, the downhill southeast. And you can clearly see I'm in a much better position. My legs aren't as up underneath me. My chest is up a little bit more, just visually in a much better position. And on the bike, I was way more comfortable as well. Another one coming down the rocks right here, just visually in a much better position. So the changes I made on the bike to increase reach and bar height were a reach adjust headset from Works Components, which took the reach on the bike plus 7 millimeters. And along with that, I put my bike in the short chainstay position, which actually gets me another 3 millimeters of reach. So increased 10 reach on the frame. And then along with that, I went from a 46 millimeter stem to a 50 millimeter stem. So another 4 millimeters right there. And along with that as well, I believe the stack height underneath my top crown right here is a little bit less than what it was before, which in turn should give me a millimeter or two more reach. And along with that, I got new bars for 2 reasons. I got Renthal fat bars specifically because they had 1 degree less back sweep than the Tidal bars that I was running. So what that does is actually increase my reach a little bit more. Having less back sweep is going to increase reach by, I don't know what the exact measurement is. I am not good at geometry off the top of my head, but I know that having less back sweep does give you a little bit more reach. And accompanied by that, I got 40 mil rise bars instead of the 25 mil that I was running. So altogether combined reach, I'm looking at about 15 to 20, give or take, millimeters of reach and another 15 millimeters of bar height as well. And what that does is, so like if you're scrunched up like I was under the bike, knees up, and you give yourself a little more reach and a little more bar height, your whole posterior chain opens up a little bit more, and it just gave me a lot more room on the bike that was visually noticeable and physically noticeable as well. Way more relaxed, felt way stronger on the bike, and just overall in a much happier place on the bike. So the total frame reach on this bike now should be 473, if I'm correct, which is still, I feel like, on the smaller side. After I tested Nico Mulali's Frameworks bike, he asked me if the next time I did this, I would give some feedback on what I thought compared to his. These bikes, suspension-wise, actually perform more similar than you might think based on how different they look. So suspension-wise, the bikes worked well. Both of them work really well. Nico's bike is quite a bit longer wheelbase-wise and reach-wise, and that was definitely the most noticeable thing that I really liked about his bike. It felt like it fit me a little bit better at my height. I really like this bike, really like Nico's bike. I'll probably hold on to this bike for the rest of the year, but next year I feel like I'm definitely gonna get a bike that's probably in the 485 to 500 mil reach range, something that I can maybe has a 56 mil head tube so I can go plus or minus 10 and kind of play around with the geometry. But the changes I made definitely helped a ton for now. All right guys, so that's it for all the changes that I've made currently on my bike from when I built it to now. There is one change that I'm gonna test out, and I think I'm gonna make a video on it because it should be a pretty cool video, and that is running a 29er in the rear on this bike as well. I haven't ran a full 29er bike in at least 2 years, I think, so it's something that I feel like I wanna try again just to see the differences now that I've been on mullet for the past couple years. I think it's gonna be a fun video, and I think there could be some performance benefits to that as well. So be on the lookout for that, but for now, that is it with my demo build. So be on the lookout for that next video.